I'm Dave Anthony. This is Fox News.
WPTV's First Alert Weather on WSTU is brought to you by Sailfish Roofing, offering excellence, honesty, and integrity in everything they do. Sailfish Roofing, 772-263-ROOF. Community roofing company you can trust. Sailfish Roofing. Now here's WPTV's First Alert meteorologist.
This afternoon, highs in the upper 80s to low 90s, a mix of sun and clouds. And we'll see some showers and storms today, but mainly inland. However, some of those showers and storms could spill over into the Treasure Coast later this evening. For tomorrow, a weak cold front starts to move in, triggering the chance for scattered showers and thunderstorms picking up during the afternoon hours. Highs in the upper 80s. Friday, morning showers with afternoon clearing, highs in the mid-80s. And then for the weekend, some spotty showers with highs in the mid-80s and a little less humid. I'm WPTV First Alert meteorologist Katya Hall for WSTU 1450, Martin County's Heritage Station.
You are listening to WSTU, Stewart, Jensen Beach, Hope Sound, Martin County's Heritage Station.
It's time now for the Casey Ingram Show on WSTU. The opinions expressed are those of the program host and guest and not necessarily those of WSTU. WSTU does not endorse products that may be mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WSTU. It's time to call in with your questions and comments at 220-9788, 220-WSTU. And now, here's Casey Ingram.
Well, good morning, Martin County. As you can tell, it's not Casey sitting in today, and I have a very special guest with me, Eric Miller, hosting for Casey today. Thank you, Casey, for the opportunity to sit in the chair and take the mic. I'm looking forward to it. And I got a full hour with the newest elected member to the Martin County School Board, Amy Pritchett, that we're going to talk with here. And there's no R in that, folks. It's Pritchett. Don't put the Pritchard in there, okay? But first, we got some housekeeping to take care of, so let's take a quick second and get that out of the way.
Public service equals public trust. This is a reminder to vote for Raymond Denzel. Ray Denzel will work for all the people of District 86. Ray Denzel is a problem solver and will always have an open door for you to reach him. Ray Denzel won't just vote the party line. Ray will vote for what makes sense for the people. Early voting begins October 26th, or vote for Ray Denzel on November the 8th. Political advertisement paid for and approved by Raymond Denzel, Democrat for Florida House of Representatives, District 86. Also, we'd like to invite you to join us Saturday, October 15th for the second annual Martin County NAACP 5K, 10K run walk honoring Thelma Waters. The race begins and ends at the Russell Holloway Jr. track at Guys Davis Field at Stewart's 10th Street Recreational Center, which is located at 724 Southeast 10th Street. The race begins around 7 a.m. It's going to be a great run with friends and family for runners of all skilled levels. Packet pickup will be held Friday, October 14th from 12 to 6, as well as the day of the race from 6 to 6:30 a.m. sharp at the 10th Street Community Center.
Fantastic. And don't let it be said that the Casey Ingram Show is some echo chamber or one-sided. Casey takes a lot of heat sometimes for seemingly leaning to one side or the other, but I think what Casey likes to do, and I think we all should do, is find the center on things, and let's find the people that we can build a strong core around. Even though we may not all agree all of the time, it's good to hear different views and different ideas. And speaking of different views and different ideas, welcome to the show, Miss Pritchett.
Thanks for having me, Eric.
Hey, man, I'm looking forward to this conversation, Amy, a lot. When do you actually take your seat and get to sit up there and vote?
Get sworn in on November 22nd at the school board meeting, 4 p.m., 500 Southeast Ocean.
Fantastic. So that's November 22nd. So this will be right after the midterm elections then?
Correct.
Oh, fantastic. What, are we 4 weeks away now from the midterms?
Yes.
Yeah, I hope people show up for this midterm election. We had a very low turnout, and I'm really surprised in some ways to see you and Jen actually winning with such a low voter turnout? Because usually it's the same old establishment voter that comes out during these non-presidential midterm primaries and votes. And not only that, we only had, you had how many opponents?
We each had one opponent.
In which party were they from?
Well, it's nonpartisan.
Right.
So I can't tell you what the other folks' status was. That I know what I was, but
Right.
you couldn't say so on the ballot. It
Is
was
that a good
considered-
idea?
You know, in some ways it is, and in some ways it isn't. If you're a person who just votes the party line, no matter what, it's probably not a good idea, because then you don't open your mind to what the other opponent may have to say and what will they accomplish. You know, it isn't fair to say that one party is going to do what I want and the other party isn't. We've dived into that now because of the divisiveness in this country.
Right.
It's Republican or it's Democrat, and there's nothing in the middle anymore. There's
Well, I
just
don't-
nothing in the middle.
I think if we bring it back a little bit, to the local level, and we actually look at our local party, we're actually running a one-party system in Martin County. I can't remember the last time that the Democrats actually put someone up in this county to run for offices as a Democrat. And the best thing they have to do right now that I can find, and it's really a shame because they are supposed to be a different voice, a different idea, a different party, a different group of thinking within our community, and they're not really representing what needs to be done to keep a two-party system going here in the county. I mean, that's always been a gripe of mine with my political background, being state committeeman with the party. We get so many, as the people in the Republican Party call them rhinos, or Republicans in name only, that come into the party, and they're actually Democrats that come in because they're not able to influence the Democratic Party enough here to be effective. They have to bring their candidates, their ideas, and their ideals into the Republican Party. So what we really have here, I think, in my opinion, is a mess, to tell you the truth. And that's on not only the political spectrum, but I think in terms of the system itself. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about how is the system of the school board set up? Because in my understanding, and I hear a lot from people, that the state has this great grip over local school boards in terms of curriculum, spending. They send a lot of money down, and then you have one person that answers to you that's responsible for these thousands of employees and implementation of the ideas that the school board comes up with. So let's try to explain a little bit, if you can, how does this system actually work? What is your role in the system, and how do you hope to influence it to make it work the way it's supposed to?
Well, the school board's responsibility is policy and budget. They are to make sure that the dollars are spent wisely and that the policies that we formulate are carried out by the superintendent. So if the policies are not being carried out, it comes back to the school board. If the policies are being carried out, then the superintendent is doing a good job.
Give us an idea of a policy that would have to be carried out.
I mean, it can range anywhere from behavior to dress code to policy on how money is dispersed. Like, there has to be a tracking system in place, so it's not just willy-nilly. Everything is written out. Now, I'm going to be full disclosure here. I have a notebook that's this big that was given to me last week. I have not been able to digest every piece of it, so I'm not coming here telling you exactly what they do in every situation.
Right.
Overview, what I've seen is that the policies that are in place, in fact, are being looked at. We're actually going through them now. I've yet not been able to do that because I'm not sworn in, but I already have been told that once December hits, we're going to be looking at all of the policies and making sure that they're tightly put together so there's no loopholes, there's no way to interpret it differently, like the Constitution.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That dusty old document.
That dusty old living document.
Yeah, there you go.
So I don't have every policy in my head, but I can tell that policies have to change because times change, kids change, fashion changes. I mean, something that could have been accepted 10 years ago isn't accepted now.
Let's talk about this a little bit further
Sure.
and get a little deeper into the system. So you have this book of policies that's, thousands of pages, probably 1,800.
It's a big notebook, and it's sectioned, and there's one big section on all the policies. But it takes up probably the most of the notebook.
So even if there's hundreds of these policies, it's sort of like our statutes and our laws, for the school district to follow. You're putting these policies. This is the law book for the employees to follow, and your superintendent is the person sort of like the president. He has to make sure that all of these employees, the CEO and president of the organization, he has to make sure that all these employees are following the board of directors, to put it in a business type of perspective, policies. Now, one of the things that I've noticed with the school board is that the school board appoints oversight committees of citizens. The county does this as well. They're very politicized at the county, and I don't want to get into the cronyism right now that goes on there, because there's a ton of cronyism that goes on. But is there a policy review and oversight committee of citizens that the board gets to appoint, or is there a potential to form a type of committee where you could get people that could actually spend time focusing directly on that and report back to the board and say, here's what our committee has found in here, good, bad, indifferent?
So, again, because I'm new and haven't been in the trenches yet, I do know that committees are often formed for curriculum. In fact, there's a social studies curriculum review going on. It's going to start, I believe, at the end of November, maybe beginning of December. Community members are asked, teachers are asked, parents are asked. As a board member, I have the ability, when asked, to assign some folks to these committees. It's very new to me, so I don't have it, I just know if a math curriculum review is necessary. School board members will have the ability to take from the public who they feel would be well representing in that committee.
So do you have the power as a school board member to persuade the other 4 members that it may be a good idea to form a committee?
Only on the dais.
Correct. No, I understand that. So you could,
all in the sunshine.
You could suggest that it would, or you or any other board member could suggest then that a topic come for agenda discussion, let's say, and then once that's opened up, because of our wonderful sunshine laws that we have, well intended, but man, they cause a lot of problems. That's a whole other. You could do a whole.
I mean, I'm new at that too, so I'm treading very carefully. I'm not going to lie. I don't have anything to hide. I would never break sunshine law, but just the perception that I'm talking to someone on the board with me looks bad. So.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. We see a lot of that going on in the Village of Indiantown. I mean, it doesn't. It's complete collaboration, or it was until people were voted out. And I got to go back to.
Sure.
I want to back the truck. No, it's okay. I want to back the truck up here a little bit. And for full disclosure, folks, I voted for Amy, and I'll tell you why I voted for Amy. Amy has a voice. And Amy is not afraid to use her voice. And when Amy says something, Amy is saying it. You won't hear a lot of cliche model political statements, fluff coming out of Amy's mouth with words that are designed to make you feel good. Amy is probably going to end up like me after 4 years, being the most hated person in the room. And I'll tell you why. Because she speaks the truth. And when Amy says something, folks, I want to tell you just from my experience and interaction with Amy, I found her to be credible. I don't always agree at a deep level with her on a lot of different things. Some different things. We have more in common than we don't. But what I found is that Amy has the ability to actually take what she's convicted with in terms of true principle and idea, and I think you're going to find a new level of leadership examples at that dais in the school board. And I urge everyone that voted to put Amy in office, because there were more of us than there were of them. You did it for a reason, and you can't leave that baggage on Amy's shoulders at this point and walk away. She's not going to carry all of your supplies in with you and expect you just to show up on a bus and have all of your stuff there. You need to walk with Amy, watch and listen to what she is saying and what she's doing, and give her the support with your voice that you, as the voter that put her in office, deserve to have. And there's more of us than there are of them. So to all the individuals out there, give this lady the support that she needs, because she's going to need it. And we were talking a little bit before we went on the air about how it's hard to understand how people can look at the system and keep expecting things to change. I mean, every time you put a piece of meat in a meat grinder and you grind it, they look at it like, oh my God, it's coming out all ground up. Well, yeah, let's do it again and see if it's different. There's a meat grinder, folks, that's waiting to get their hands on this woman that has pledged her support to this community for our children, for our future, for the oversight of your dollar and tax dollars. And please give her the support she needs, because there are thousands of people that are employed within a system that have their own employment interest at heart. And when you start to tamper with some of those things, or the way things were done, because things may need to be changed, you're going to meet a lot of resistance. You're going to meet a system like everywhere else that's ready to consume those that come in to control it, because the system has been there longer than the individuals have. And it's not necessarily strictly out of a malevolence position that you see. It comes from a natural fear of how do we maintain what we have as a collective group of people as a school district. So anyway, that's my soapbox for the hour, and I really am. I'm looking forward to watching you lead. I know you're going to be a good leader. So
thank you.
Good luck.
It's interesting because you brought something up. Over the course of the past few weeks, I've been reading articles about how is it that these voters passed the millage, but they put me and Jen in office.
Yeah.
What they don't understand is that there's more of us than there are of them. And they want their teachers to be paid, but they want a voice. And that's the difference. They don't want people in office that are going to toe the line. And that's what people voted for. Why did I lose by a narrower margin? Because I was running against an incumbent. I was running against a legend, and I give him all the props. He was a good leader in what he could do and what he believed in.
Right.
And that's what I'll say about that. I was a voice for people who were, for too long, underground, and they came to the surface.
The silent majority.
The silent majority. There are more of us than there are of them.
Well, and I'll tell you, Amy, it takes a person like you to stand up first at that precipice and put your foot over the edge of that precipice and close your eye and trust that there's going to be a plank at least that you can walk to the end of, if not a bridge over the chasm to the other side. And that's
I know how to swim.
Well, that's good. That's fantastic. We talk about the system itself, and one of the things you brought up was the referendum, and I'd kind of like to talk about that referendum a little bit. The not necessarily the last one that was voted on, but the prior. Now, Talk About Martin did some investigative work with Martin County Parents United, and we had information from one of those committees, if you will, that was put together and formed to oversee the distribution of the funds of that referendum, over $4 million a year on the first one that was passed. And we found that the money actually wasn't going to the allocated areas that it was supposed to go to, according to the referendum language. We ended up paying, janitors and landscapers and bus drivers and other people monies out of what the voters had said was supposed to be going to and sold for, teacher raises, which the teachers actually got shorted almost $1 million a year because of that. And I would have thought back then, when we talked about this, that the teachers would have been the first ones on board to say, hey, this was wrong. We got wronged. But I saw the system stand up for itself, and it's beguiling. It really is beguiling to me.
To me, it was a union communication issue. And while I don't have all the details and I'm not an expert, I think at the end of the day, the union comes together and they want what they want. Self-interest. And look, I'm for capitalism. I want the free market. I want to spend my money the way I want to spend it. And so are a lot of these people. They feel that way. And money in your pocket makes a difference. So the millage passed this year, even though in the past there were issues. At the end of the day, they wanted more money in their paycheck. And
who doesn't?
Who doesn't? And I guess for me, it's about communication. Yeah. And that first millage, how the money was doled out was negotiated by the union.
Oh, you bet it was. It was actually a memorandum of understanding was actually signed off by the board, by the board chairman with the union president, and the union president took everything from job titles and actually took them down to bargaining units, so you didn't even know the title of what was being paid for. It was very slick, but that trust level that was broken at that point.
But I think the money trumped the trust. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, I would tend to agree.
And the same people that supported myself and Jen also wanted more money in their pocket. So they made that choice. That's what happened.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be able to, gain more munificence for yourself, as long as we all work within the same moral and ethical framework to get it done. And when one side, like a teachers union, a firefighters union, a public workers union, has such a voting block and influence and power, there's some ethics and some questions that need to be looked at with that, which we don't have to get into right now. But the one thing that we haven't actually talked about, and I'm going to kind of segue us into it here a little bit with the referendum, is how did we go from being A-rated schools the first time we passed this referendum and the teacher said we need more money or we're going to walk? Oh, God, our schools are going to go. Well, our schools actually went down to B-rated schools. The money obviously didn't have the effect that everyone said it was going to have, which again shows the true nature of what actually was going on with it. Time is always a good arbiter of truth.
Yes.
Truth that will always bubble back up to the surface. And the second time we voted for it again, but the grades levels of our schools went down. What do you attribute to this going from an A to a B grade to B? It's obviously not the money, because we've given them the money.
I mean, there's a couple of things, but what bubbles to the surface for me is the demographic changing, and you've got more students in the schools that aren't speaking English. And you have two schools, you have Port Salerno Elementary and Pinewood Elementary, that their ratings went down individually. So collectively, as the county, it went from an A to a B. I think there's 3 or 4 points that would bring it back up to an A. But those individual schools and their demographics went down individually, causing what happened at the bigger level.
Wow.
And you have a school that's 30% non-English speaking, and then the next year they're 50%.
Wow.
That's a hypothetical I'm giving you there. But I don't have the numbers in front of me, and absolutely
I can.
It's a large change percentage, And you have to do things differently. If kids can speak in their native language and they know all the forms of the nouns and the verbs and everything else, they're going to catch on to English very quickly. But if they don't have command of their own language in that way, it's much more difficult. And I think that's part of the issue. You've got kids coming in that don't even speak fluently in their own language and don't understand how to put a sentence together.
Right.
Try to teach them English at the same time. You're not going to be successful. So we have to do things differently.
So is this a single language issue?
Collectively, I think it's a change in the demographics and what students we are serving.
Right.
We're not serving the same complexion, and by that I mean you've got such a diversity now that you need to do so many things differently, and we have to find a way to do them.
Is mainstreaming these children really the best way to go, or should we possibly be looking at, I mean, let's face it, folks, you know, everyone wants to call people racist, or, you know, are afraid to step out and talk on demographic issues like this. But when you look at the fact that our grades are going down because we have an influx of immigrants that are coming into this country and children, I mean, it's at a percentage level that it's affecting the overall grade performance of an entire district. So potentially, is there something that we should be looking at to say, look, we need to get these kids into a program of remedial education before we mainstream them? And that's not really racist to say. It's actually in the children's best interest to take that route and move in that direction, because without it, they don't really stand a chance. And when we come back in just a minute, because we have a little bit of housekeeping to take care of, we can pick up on that note. And Evan, you got something for us.
Forbearances, working remotely, internet shopping, retail space, and rental income have been hit hard by COVID. If you're looking to restructure your debt, obtain financing or equity, Commercial Mortgage can help you out. Tim Mullen at Commercial Mortgage has been providing debt restructuring services since 2003. Tim never charges a front fee and all consultations are free. Tim only gets paid if he provides you a debt workout. Looking for a debt solution or financing? Give Tim a call at 772-872-6099 or visit commercialmortgagellc.com to schedule your free consultation.
You are listening to WSTU, Stewart, Jensen Beach, Hope Sound, Martin County's Heritage Station.
You're listening to The Casey Ingram Show on WSTU Digital 1450. Call in with questions and comments at 220-9788. 220-WSTU. And now back to the show.
Public service equals public trust. This is a reminder to vote for Raymond Denzel. Ray Denzel will work for all the people of District 86. Ray Denzel is a problem solver and will always have an open door for you to reach him. Ray Denzel won't just vote the party line. Ray will vote for what makes sense for the people. Early voting begins October 26th, or vote for Ray Denzel on November the 8th. Political advertisement paid for and approved by Raymond Denzel, Democrat for Florida House of Representatives, District 86. Now back to the program.
All right. Well, welcome back. For those of you that are joining us late or just getting started this morning, get yourself some coffee. Let's go. Welcome back to the Casey Ingram Show. I'm Eric Miller, and we have in studio for another half an hour Amy Pritchett, who is one of the newest school board members to be elected in Marshall County. And man, do we love it. Amy, we were just talking a little bit about how the demographic influx of illegal immigrants and other immigrants that are coming into this county on such a large level are actually being reflected. It's a barometer or a thermometer, if you will, of the type of influx that we have. And it always cracks me up when I see people like in New York City, the mayor saying, oh, we got 60 buses of 30 people on it, and we've got to declare a state of emergency. No, folks, your grades are levels in the school system are being affected because we have so many people that are bringing their children here. Welcome to America. Now let's get on board with America. Mm-hmm. And to be fair to these children who are here of no choice of their own, they now have to assimilate in a completely different nation. Yeah. I remember first time I went to Paris, France. I was in the Army. See, all my friends were rich when I was in high school, and they all took sabbaticals over the holiday. I had to stay home and clean the garage out with my dad, which I would give $1 million to do again. But when I was in Paris, I had to speak the German I knew, the French I knew, and the English I knew in a complete sentence and hope that I could communicate. These are children coming to a foreign land, living with a foreign language and a foreign set of ideals that are now required by law to be in school, which I don't think is a bad thing. We all need education, and the stronger and better educated our populace, the better off we all are. But these children aren't even speaking English yet. And it sounds to me like there's a large mainstreaming of this influx that's taking place without any recognition of the fact that we actually have an issue here. And the issue should be for the children and not for any other monetary or political reason. How do we go about addressing this? What are your thoughts?
Well, at the very youngest ages, early intervention. If they're young enough and they're going to stay here, say they come here when they're 2 or 3 years old, early intervention, have there, and there are programs in the county for that.
But that's outside of the school board's authority, isn't it?
Correct.
Okay.
But when they get to VPK, which is the voluntary pre-K, programs are already in place for that. The issue is we've got kids that are older than that. We've got kids that are coming into 4th grade or 7th grade or 9th grade.
Wow.
That don't speak English. That's where I think your idea, perhaps, of maybe having something within each of those schools that those number of kids get separate education in the language.
Yeah.
There is something to be said for mainstreaming, because the kids that are quick and the kids who are easy to teach and don't have such barriers like we talked before about, they have a good construct of their own native language, they're going to assimilate to English much quicker. Those kids should be in the classroom with their peers who are speaking fluent English. But the ones who aren't, I tend to think there should be something available, whether it's before school, after school, during school, where they can all, because the English language, whether you're 5 years old or 10 years old, it's still the same words, it's still the same sentences. There's nothing wrong with having multi-ages in a room to get that basic foundation.
We did it when Ellis Island.
Exactly. We did it at Little House on the Prairie.
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, I like that traditional help each other. Your children, you all want the same goal. Do it together. There's nothing wrong with a teenager teaching a 5-year-old.
Oh, I agree with you 100% on that. It kind of leads me in my thinking now to a different aspect of that, and that is, how is the curriculum actually controlled? Is this more of a state run? The state says, here it is for the state, this is the curriculum, go implement it.
They have standards. The Florida Department of Education has standards that all 67 counties must adhere to. The weeds of it, I don't have in my pocket yet.
Question, or an interesting way of putting it, standards.
They have their standards. For instance, they may say we're rolling out a new science curriculum. Here are the authors and publishers that you can choose from. So they've already looked at all of them, and you get to decide which of those books that you want. But I'll give you another example. Civics is standard in all 67 counties now in Florida. Civics must be taught. Before it was elective. Now it must, right? Elective.
Right. No, you're right. You're right.
There's must-haves. So civics must be taught. Children can't graduate without civics now in Florida.
About time.
Yeah. Well, I say to people all the time, what a shame that we have to legislate common sense. We have to legislate things that are inherent. we shouldn't have had to have a parental bill of rights. The parental bill of rights is within each parent. Don't tell me now I have rights. I've had them all along.
Yeah.
So with curriculum, getting back to your question, I'll rein it in, they provide a set of standards, and the schools are then able to draw from those places and determine what they want. What they're teaching in Broward County may not be the exact thing they're teaching. The subjects are the same, but they may not be using the same curriculum.
So who determines the the standards for the curriculum are put together? Your pool of knowledge is put there. Who determines the teaching methodologies, the teaching, the syllabus? Who puts it together that says you're going to teach this, 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 and this in all of our STEM classes, for instance?
So within each curriculum, there are what I'll call the rules and regulations. So you get a listing of, okay, this is going to be taught first. This is your third chapter. This is your fourth chapter. That part of it is there for them. But how they teach it, their style, is their own.
Do teachers get supplies?
So what I've been told is that they get certain supplies, and then others they have to purchase themselves.
Okay.
I have not yet been in the room to find out what they get and what they don't get, so I don't want to answer to it.
Do they get a classroom budget?
So that is another great question, Eric. I believe that there are materials that are provided within the curriculum. The kids get their workbooks. They get,
So if a teacher decides to teach something differently by firing a model rocket off, for instance, in a physics class, and it isn't there, they have to provide the model rocket.
That's my understanding. I don't want to be quoted on that.
No, it's okay.
I feel.
I hope you'll look into it, because
I will.
think if you give a classroom an agreed upon amount, a teacher to say, look, you know what you're going to need. We have these materials here that are already provided,
right.
But here's a budget that you can spend, and here's the protocol for expending. I mean, you got to go through the bureaucracy and accountability and all of those wonderful things. I mean, shucks, it's money.
Right.
But if they could have a pool of money, I mean, this is something that the teachers were arguing about, and you saw them at the beginning of the school system on Amazon everywhere. These teachers' wish lists. There was a whole page on Facebook of teachers that were posting their wish lists that you could go in and buy things off of Amazon for the classroom. I'm like, pencils and pens,
right.
And are you kidding me? This is crazy to think that we're not supplying these items. I would hope that you would look into it.
I will.
One, not because I wanted to kowtow to
you want the information
group of crybabies that think that they need some, because some of the stuff on there was crazy. I mean, it's like, really, cushions for the chairs? Are you kidding me? You want cushions for these kids to sit on? No. Okay, my tax dollars don't need to go to that. Give them a hard wooden seat, a ruled lined paper, and a number 2 pencil. In my opinion, let's get back to the basics. But anyway,
now here's where you and I might disagree. I would go into that list and say, like you, no way, I'm not doing cushions. But yeah, I'll buy crayons.
Yes.
So it's up to everybody to determine what they want to fund and what they won't fund. I am aware of a foundation that works with the school district, and each teacher's name is listed, and people can go in and fund the classroom. It's called Adopt a Classroom, I think.
Yeah.
And that, again, it's at your discretion.
Right.
My feeling is, no, I'm not buying the fillet, but I'm not going to tell you can't buy the fillet. You want to buy the cushion, go ahead. I'm not paying for that.
Right.
And I think that's what, to me, is individual rights. Just like I want them, I want you to be able to enjoy what you want to enjoy. So, but I understand what you're saying. If you've got this dire need for the very basics, cushions are probably number
Not
50.
it. Yeah, I mean, shouldn't we at least in
Yes.
each school have an administrative body that says, okay, there's 3 of us that are going to sit on this administrative board that are in leadership for each school, and the school board's going to give us $5,000, $10,000 a year. And if a teacher has a need because there is a lack
Right.
of supply, to come forward and we have a pool of money, that takes the load off of the system in that respect too, and it doesn't denigrate the you
Yeah.
know, the whole overall.
I will
the
look
whole
into that.
It'd be great. You know, again, on the state versus local, where does the majority of the funding come from, and what's the round number? How much money is in the budget each year that the school board has authority to allocate, and where does the majority of that money come? What are the different revenue streams? Let's put it that way. Where do you guys get your money from?
Well, we get from state, we get from grants, we get federal dollars as well. Again, I can't break those each down for
Right.
you. What I know for certain is we're dealing with a $500 million plus total budget.
$500 million.
Correct. There are 1,200 teachers in the district.
Wow.
The majority of money goes to salary.
Yeah, be real interesting looking at the top end in terms of the employment scale within the district and see how top heavy we actually are, because again, this gets back to the system. I think there's a system that's designed to create work for itself, and they self-justify a lot of the work and positions that they have because, well, I can't get all of these things done. Well, you are the ones that put these things in place that if we just they're not really doing anything
Right.
except growing the size of the local government. And when you begin to look at, let's get outside of Marshall County for a little bit here, because we talked about, some of the funding sources. Look at the federal revenue that comes in. The DOE is a whole other discussion. I think it should be completely disbanded as soon as possible and more local control.
I wish that the Department of Education was disbanded under our previous leader of the country, and he talked about it.
Right.
He wouldn't have been able to do it in that term, but I think we need to have more local authority, and I think the citizens that live here should be able to weigh in on how that looks.
Well, I hope they would weigh in on how it looks, and what is going on. And again, I hope that they have your back, and every other council or school board members back as well. I mean, you can't just turn
Right.
people loose and
No.
then yell at them after 4 years and say, well, you did a lousy job. Well, where in the heck were you? Where were you people? Again, though, getting back to the budgetary side of this, we're facing, which, people can either choose to accept it or ignore it, and sometimes it's easier for people to ignore the facts because they're just too overwhelming for them. But we are in a real financial crisis right now, not just as a nation, but as a world. And we don't need to get into the details. I think everybody that goes shopping can see what some of those levels are in terms of inflation, and we can argue all day long whether we're in a recession, on the precipice of a depression, whatever it is, but it's only going to take another 1 or 2 black swan events before the thing starts to really unravel and those revenue streams start to go away. Now, we're fortunate in Florida. We have probably, in my opinion, the best economy in the world right now. We have under 2% unemployment
We're like
rate.
a state country to ourselves.
And that's because we keep a lot of autonomy here. We've taken a lot of that autonomy back from the walk and lot and the Charlie Crist days. The Charlie, I don't know where I'm at because the wind's not blowing right now. Which way do I go? I'll wait for the breeze.
Go that way, Charlie.
Oh, man. I hope to do a whole show on him coming up. That would, anyway, that would probably get me in trouble and banned off of YouTube. But the closer we get to all of these issues culminating into revenue decreases, I'm hearing people on this board talk about, well, we need to build housing. We need to increase this. We need to spend another $100,000 over
Less
here.
government.
Less government,
Let
less
the private
spending.
sector take care of that situation.
How would you feel about letting private landscaping companies come in and have even 1, 2, or 3 schools that they're responsible for that contract instead of having a whole landscaping
Like
division?
micro schools? Are you
Well,
talking
no,
about?
I mean, not micro schools, but I'm getting rid of some of this government where we have, for instance, a landscaping and maintenance department.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood.
And actually taking the money that we're spending, put it into a competitive situation, not for maybe the entire district, but let's say you get this district, here's a district out here, here's a series of schools that we're going to individually bid on these schools to keep them competitive, to have more opportunity for more local businesses to do things. Again, put standards in place, but then you're taking away this whole bureaucracy of having to contribute to the retirement funds, of having all of the insurance liabilities, the employment, the oversight, the HR. You could probably get rid of an HR person that has to oversee all of these people. You've got mid-level supervisors that you're paying.
You should have run.
Well, people, look, I should run, but I can't stand up there with a big enough smile. People are not going to like what I have to say. And
it makes a lot of sense. I haven't thought about that. But something you did say that concerns me is that we have a real possibility of a rail strike.
Mm-hmm.
And that will pulverize the entire country. Schools will be affected. Not just our paychecks and being able to eat, but everything we have depends on that type of transportation. It's like without the bees, you'd have no fruits and vegetables.
What about energy? Let's look at it. Let's talk about the energy costs right now. We have depleted our national oil reserves that are supposed to be there for strategic purposes in a very strategic time right now where we're talking about you better get your iodine pills because Uncle Joe says it's Armageddon. And the energy prices are being artificially deflated right now in the gas market for this midterm election. And diesel's already back up over $5. The Saudis have said, hey, man, forget it, dude. We're not with you, Joe. We're not with you, buddy. We're not pumping anymore. We like making this money off of this. He has very few strategic reserves left to sell to artificially deflate the gas market. So buses have to go. County vehicles have to run. You see them everywhere.
You have to get to work.
People have to get to work, exactly. But just from a cost standpoint for the school board, what contingencies are in place for these types of expenditures? Because you have to budget based upon some known quantitative value. And when that value, folks, jumps by 20%, 30%, now what are you going to do? You're going to have to come back to the taxpayer again? And how often can the taxpayer continue to give their money without this thing starting to spiral out of control? So I'm with you. Less government, less spending.
But I can't get those answers until I'm on the dais able to ask them, what can we do if we are in this situation? What is our plan? I mean, I can say in my own head what I think, but that's not going to matter.
See, guys, this is why I like Amy, because she actually thinks she thinks things through. She's a critical thinker. And you have given, along with me and a lot of other voices, someone like Amy now, and I'm going to use the word the power to be able to sit in the position that she's been elected to and ask the tough questions.
They are tough
This
questions.
doesn't have to be a political combat.
No.
Like most people have this idea of politics being poised at. Politics is supposed to be our ability to discuss the differences of idea on how we're going to exist as a civilization, as a group of people, either locally or nationally or at a state level. That's what politics is supposed to be about, but it's gotten so divisive. So I hope, folks, you're going to see with Jen going in and Amy going in and a couple of other people that are up there, I hope we can bring one of them back around a little bit to more conservative. Now that they know that it's going to be okay to say things, they're not going to be the only one. I hope we can get a little bit more of a rational thought and not all of this altruistic, feel-good, bleeding heart. Oh, but we have to have it. Building houses for teachers? Really? When did we get to communal? That's socialist.
That's the job of the private builders and businesses to take care of.
I agree. And when government gets in the way of the free market system, like this wonderful recent pet store manifestation that came down, this is crazy.
When they had nothing left in the tank, it's now you're charging too much to buy the puppy.
Oh, it's
that
crazy.
To me was singularly ridiculous.
Did they ever? I wonder if they ever had a mayor's credit card. I mean, I remember
Bayer's credit card,
Dillard's
appliances. Are we going to regulate everybody's financial charges now?
Yeah, we're going to. It's called a central bank digital currency, and it's right around the corner. Expected, I would think, by the end of the year.
It
if not
shocked
the beginning,
me.
but-
It just shocked me that
Yeah.
okay, we spent it all on this, and it isn't palatable. Let's accuse them of being financially inept.
Well, part of that, there's two topics I want to jump on this real quick. One of them is public-private partnerships. And here's an example of why a public-private partnership with government does not work. Public being the government, private being the free enterprise system, and a partnership to where the two join to form an authoritative outcome. The county pays over $1 million plus a year to the Humane Society. Now, Humane Society, don't get bristled up. We're not coming after all the great volunteers.
I
like
work there.
you
I'm a
that
volunteer. I love that place.
I have rescued animals from there myself.
Me too.
Look, it's not the Humane Society. It is the position the Humane Society has put themselves in this public-private partnership. Then they get $1 million a year. Then they step forward. They go to the commission and they say, "Here's something we want you to deal with." Man, you want to talk about a moral and ethical dilemma. That's it right there. And the outcome of the decision for the commission to do what they did to actually, now the county attorney will say, we didn't actually ban a retail sector. We gave them the opportunity to reinvent their business.
Right.
Give me a frickin' break.
Right.
Reinvent their business.
I'd like to run a bar, but we can't serve any liquor.
Yeah, we're just going to have pretty glasses and umbrellas, and hopefully people will come in and buy our stuff.
And you'll
right?
pretend you're drinking.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Well, the other fallout from this that took place is that you look at the city of Stewart. Okay, the city of Stewart, by law, by state law, has to have an animal control policy and the ability to control stray animals. Okay, I get it. We don't want a lot of feral animals on the street. So what did they do? They adopted the county's code and ordinance and they codified it into their own law. So what you did in Stewart, okay, was you gave away the people's voice in Stewart that voted for you to tell them what needed to be done. You gave that voice away to the county, and when the county changed it, the city of Stewart, in order to say, well, if you want to stay in our boundaries, we're going to grandfather you in. They couldn't, because they would have to codify and fund their own. So you've got this public-private partnership with business that's getting taxpayer money, and now you get like 17 different states in the union right now that have codified California's energy policies.
Right.
When California says we have to jump, 17 states now have had the voters' rights taken away from them. So this stuff does cascade. Grants, please watch the tail end of obligations on these grants. Grants always sound good. Oh, goody, goody, goody. We got
Agenda
$2 million.
21.
Agenda 21, Agenda 2030. Please watch the tail end of these and bring them to your fellow council people's attention when they come through and say, you do realize that 5 years from now we have to do X, Y, and Z. Are we going to be capable? And what happens to us as a school? Amy, I love you. I'm so looking forward to you being
Thank
up
you.
there. I hope that people will tune in now on school board meeting nights instead of tuning into the lamestream media or watching some silly sitcom. Take 15, 20, 30 minutes, at least review your school board members' comments, your commission comments. You want to see some good comedies and some good drama and theater, man. Watch what's happening at a local level with your rights, your votes, and your dollars. I'm going to give you the parting shot.
I just really appreciate you letting me speak. I love to speak about everything. I love Martian County, but we do need lots of change, lots of input And I beg parents and community members to let your voices be heard as well.
Exactly, and you don't have to be scared that you're going to be the only one.
No.
Folks, remember, like we've said over and over again, everyone may not be walking shoulder to shoulder right now, but there are others out there walking with you, whether you can see them or not, and we're all heading in the right direction and in the same direction, because we know that there are things that are not right. So stand up, speak out, be strong, be an individual, and stay tuned in right here to WSTU and the Casey Ingram Show once a week for exciting and wonderful guests like Amy Pritchett. Man, next week coming up, Michael Circus. He'll be on here with Casey. Stay tuned, folks. Thanks, Casey.